We're working on osaikomi techniques, and now we're focusing on Kesa Gatame. Now, if you study Judo, it's likely you learned this osaikomi technique on your very first day. It's the first osaikomi technique that is usually taught to shoshinsha, which is the Japanese word for a beginner. And the reason for that is because after executing a throw from the traditional sleeve lapel grip, Kesa Gatame is usually the easiest osaikomi to shift into. The best time to attack with a Waza technique is during that transition from Waza to Waza. And so after you practice a standard throw from the Gokyu no Waza, Osotogari, Ogoshi, Deashi Harai, and you'll find how seamlessly you can shift into Kesa Gatame, and that's why Kesa Gatame is the first osaikomi technique that is taught. In his opinion, however, Kesa Gatame is not a particularly stable position. If you're smaller and you try to use this osaikomi technique on larger training partners, larger opponents, it's very likely that you got rolled a lot. And so he's going to teach you how to prevent that. But overall, he doesn't really recommend using Kesa Gatame unless you're bigger and stronger than your opponent. A part of the reason that you're likely to get rolled is because when you first start out, the tendency is to want to treat Kesa Gatame kind of like, you kind of revert back to your old playground fighting, middle school cafeteria style fighting, the old side headlock, and you want to treat that head like it's a chokehold. And of course, against a seasoned practitioner of martial arts, it's just not going to be that effective. The key to Kesa Gatame is the arm, not the head. You want to focus on controlling the arm as opposed to the head. Because, you don't really need the head at all. You can completely release the head. As long as you've got the arm, you still have an osaikomi, and you're still going to score a pwn if he doesn't get out in time. So we'll go ahead and go through his demonstration of Kesa Gatame now. So there's the control of the arm. You pinch his forearm there in your armpit. And then you grab his sleeve like around the shoulder somewhere. You'll hear him use the word waki a lot, which is like the area under your arm, between your armpit, the ribs, that general area. And they'll say waki shime a lot. That means to pinch your elbow tight to your side. So you maintain your balance with your foot position, your leg position, and of course also posting with that hand that can go under his head. Now, he doesn't recommend doing this, putting both feet out in front of you. You'll see that happen sometimes. Some wrestlers will do that. They make it work, but he doesn't recommend that. It's likely, if your opponent's quick and explosive, he can sit up into you and reverse you. So your right leg is posted out in front of you there. It's best to get your right thigh underneath his shoulder. That's going to make it a lot harder for him to roll you if you can get your right leg underneath his shoulder and almost like kind of arch your hips underneath that right shoulder of his. And your left foot, you post it right underneath your rear. That way he can't sit up into you. Now, a lot of people, as I mentioned earlier, they like to wrap the head. They want to think of this grip. They want to think of this hold on the head like it's a chokehold, and they want to just squeeze the head really hard. And like I said before, the head is not the important part of this particular osaikomi. And by wrapping the head, it makes it really easy for your opponent to... There's a proclivity for your arm to get caught underneath his head. to get trapped underneath his head, especially if he's bigger than you. And then the likelihood of you getting rolled is substantially increased. So it'll just roll you like that, reverse you. So to prevent that, you just post your hand out. You post your hand, and once again, you post, and when you post with that hand, you push back into your hips to help maintain your stability. So rather than wrapping your arm around his head and squeezing, you only go about mid-forearm deep at the back of his head, and you're going to lift his head and pull his nose up towards your chest. If you do this right, this puts a lot of pressure on his chest. If you watch old UFCs with like Mark Coleman and some of those other wrestlers, they'll tap people out from here because of the pressure that you can put on your opponent's diaphragm, and you can kind of smother them by pulling their face into your gi. So that lifting action underneath his head, well, those two actions, you're only about mid-forearm deep at the back of his head. You're not sinking bicep deep on his neck or on his head. That way, if he does try to bridge, it's a lot easier to slip your hand out and post. And also, you can use your forearm, like I said, to lift and crank on his head. So he tries to bridge, it's a lot easier to slip your hand out and post and restabilize. Now he's talking about kata gatame, or the arm triangle as it's called sometimes. That's the basic position that he just demonstrated. Locking his arm up, you kind of use your neck and your shoulder to drive his bicep across his throat. This is, of course, a submission hold that you see in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the ADCC, and so on. Now, he recommends not getting your shoulder that low. I mean, if you're looking to tap him out with this, some guys tend to get their shoulder lower so that they can drive that arm across the throat a little more effectively. But if your shoulder's lower, there seems to be more of a chance of him rolling out this way and escaping the osaikomi unless you're really, really strong. So you put the pressure more on his mid-tricep area with your neck and shoulder. What'll also help prevent him from doing that somersault that you just saw is you put that shin or your knee there on his hip bone. And then, of course, you maintain your stability with, in this case, your left leg. You can also grab your own gi if you didn't catch that. See how he takes his right hand and, well, he takes his left hand and he feeds his left lapel to his right hand right there. You see he's got that grip. And now you've got your left hand free to maintain your balance or to control in other ways. And you can sit out that way. You can go into a koshi-kiri position. This is called koshi-kiri. See how you sit out like this right there? The position his legs and hips are in right now, that's called koshi-kiri.